Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another broadcast. Today I want to start a new series that I'm calling Marvel Autopsy. I want to go into the past. I want to be the mortician who figures out exactly where it all went wrong with Marvel, how the company, for all intents and purposes, died, and we'll see if something rises from the ashes. But there could be many reasons why somebody dies. So I don't want you to think that I'm talking about the sole reason. This is just something that came into my YouTube feed the other day after I did my Tom Brevoort, my other live QuickTime broadcast. And I was like, oh, let me check this out. So I saw this video and I was initially surprised that Marvel has 4.4 million followers in this particular video. It's got less than 5,000 views since 2010. It's like, okay, that's weird. Let me check it out. It's called Marvel Reading Circle, and it's on The Amazing Spider-Man number 620. I watched it, and I learned all sorts of lessons, although they're lessons that Marvel probably doesn't wish that myself and others would learn. So I'm scared that they would file a false copyright infringement claim against me if I played you elements of the video and then responded. So I'm not going to do that. So what I did is I took screenshots, I quoted them. I will link to the video afterwards for you guys to watch it if you want, so you could check and make sure that I'm not, screwing around with the quotes and stuff like that. But you'll see what I'm talking about. So, all right, so they have this reading circle, and Mr. Brevoort says, "This is our regular reading circle where once a week a bunch of the young editors get together over lunch and we talk about some comic that's just come out, trying to analyze it. Hopefully get a little better at doing what it is that we do." Okay, so that's March 9th, 2010. You would think, so embedded within this statement is the correct premise that the book is not going to be perfect. There's going to be flaws. You need to tease out those flaws, and if you don't, then you're going to make the same mistakes in the future. All right, so Mr. Brevoort turns the floor over to his employees, and the first guy, Mr. White, says, "First of all, I enjoy Spider-Man as a character, but this particular issue is a pretty terrific issue." He goes on, "It's really beautifully drawn." Okay, so he praises the issue, and he says it's terrific. And he basically says that there's nothing wrong with this issue. Okay, we go on. There's another guy. He says, "This is an issue where there's almost never a dull moment." And he goes on, "It gives you an awesome, fun 22 pages. And then he went on to say that it actually leads you on so that you can expect another 22 awesome pages in the future. That was Mr. Beckerman, again, same day. So we're just running through the list of everyone in this reading circle, and everyone's saying it's the greatest book ever. So Mr. McCann says, "Sometimes, I'll see something and I'll kind of think this is a throwaway, like these little sidebar things, but it's not. I think it was really well designed." So he's talking about this image right here. Now, if I was critiquing, if I was in the room, I would say, especially if I was a social justice warrior, I'd be like, don't you think that Captain Yuri Wanatabe right here, she kind of looks like the 1960s Asian stereotypes. You really stressed the facial features and stuff like that. That might come across the wrong way. Maybe you would do that. Some people, I would think, of Tom's particular political persuasion would even be open to something like that if you were like, hey, she looks kind of strange there. I wouldn't say that this is perfect. I guess that's the main point that I'm getting at here. Again, next, Mr. Beckerman, who spoke before, he says, "The panel breaks in this book were just out of this world, out of control, in a good way." So he's talking about this panel, and so everybody loved the book. Everyone says it's perfect. Now Tom is the one, it's like they're waiting to turn it over to him to see what he comes up with that has flaws. And he says, "I think it's just because it's such a huge expanse of absolutely flat blue sky that it almost almost, seemed too graphic to me. That the one, literally the one, but you know, it worked for you, so it's fine. He goes on, all right, folks, thank you very much. So everybody tells Tom Brevoort that this issue is the greatest issue of all time. I was just at my parents' last weekend, and I know I have this book somewhere in their attic. I can't believe I found this after I came back to my apartment, so I would actually like review it. But so anyway, he finds like one panel where he's like, oh, you know, maybe we could have done something a little differently with this particular panel. So my point here is that if you want to know what happened to Marvel, here's another kind of glimpse into where it all goes wrong. So when you are analyzing, right, you don't want to be in a room where everybody, it's like a group think situation where everyone just tells each other that, you know, they're awesome, they got pats on the back. You know, when I was in college, I did a lot of writing workshops. When I was in college, I went to the University of Southern California. I was a Trojan, so you know, just so you know, I'll give you a heads up. I wrote this is like 2002, and you know, you're supposed to write what you know. I wrote this little short story called Homecoming. Had a character named David. In many ways, a lot of the things were gleaned from my experiences overseas. Not all of it is 100%. You know, it's not nonfiction. It's not a memoir or whatever. But so I wrote this piece called Homecoming. And I guess I'll just read a little bit for you, like right now, and then I'll tell you about the reactions. So this is how it starts out. There's a lot to it, but we'll just say, David pulled his bed sheets tight, got up from his knees, and admired his work. He took a quarter from his pants pocket and flicked it against the mattress. As it bounced onto the floor, he smiled. Picking up the coin, he gave a final glance under the bed. Formal shoes, followed by those more casual, were lined up like good soldiers directly beneath the frame. His drill sergeants would be proud. He would fiddle with some recently washed clothes, folding and perhaps refolding them until his mother happened to walk by. She'd undoubtedly say, "Nice job. Now how about making mine look that good?" He'd tell her that she could learn to do it herself at boot camp. Then he'd wait until she was out running errands before making her bed. With luck, her gratitude would take the form of 3-meat lasagna and a big bowl of salad. Perhaps, thought David, perhaps I made the right choice. David had tried to take correspondence courses while stationed overseas, but with little success. Those pesky, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Fraulein friends eyeing American citizenship through conjugal visits proved a formidable distraction, although battle buddies who preferred German beer to Bronte ran a close second. His mother's only stipulation before he had enlisted was for him to promise to one day receive a college diploma. When it became apparent that playing soldier was incompatible with playing part-time student, an honorable discharge became the only way he could live up to his end of the bargain. He let his window for re-enlistment close without wavering. While returning to civilian life offered David a college education and a brighter financial future than the career infantryman, the growing number of social situations that left him feeling out of place began to trouble him. Okay, so it goes on and on and on. I don't live on West 29th Street in Los Angeles anymore, and that is not my phone number, so do not call it. I don't know whose it is. Anyway, so, you know, it went on, and this was a story that was inspired by my time overseas and my return to civilian life and alienation and things like that I felt. Anyway, so there was a guy, he hated everything that I wrote, and he would just tear, you know, for this particular piece, after he read it, we all got in a circle, and he said you had to say what you liked and what you disliked about it. So he ripped into it. I don't know exactly what he said. I just know he hated it. And then afterwards, he said the thing that he liked about it, he said, you know, I think you're really great with punctuation. So my response to him was like, why don't you just say that, you know, you don't like anything about it? You know, don't tell me you like the punctuation. You're insulting me right now. It's like, yeah, I don't know when to put a period at the end of a sentence. You know, so like those were the kind of back and forths we had. It's like, yeah, be honest with me, dude. I don't care if you don't like it. But, you know, those were the sorts of writing groups that I was often a part of, where you might get a guy who says he hates everything. I mean, that's not really constructive criticism, but you get my point. So Tom Brevoort's reading circles, they're literally telling him that everything is great, there's nothing wrong, 22 pages of awesomeness, you know, and the only bad thing is like a single panel. And yeah, Tom even says literally the one place, whereas an issue was with this one panel, it's a little too blue for his liking, I guess. Whatever. So you know, that's you're in this like feedback loop where it's just constantly validating the other person's opinions, no matter what they are, saying you're the greatest people ever. And this is how you get. I did a video on this as well, the Marvel God Complex, with Dan Slott agreeing with this Alan Moore quote about how artists, they give you what you need, not what you want, what you need. They actually feel like, you know, this is essential to your existence. The things that they give you is what you need. It is very important to distinguish between wants and needs. So you have a situation where behind the scenes, they're always being validated. They're not even critiquing each other. It's just whatever the artist, the writer comes up with, boom. It's like they are creating, like, them turning themselves into like demigods or something like that, because whatever, you know, as a god, whatever they would come up with, that would be the right thing. So that's how you get these sort of like narcissists. But the problem for them is that they live in the real world, and outside of these bubbles, you know, people are going to react. They get angry when people push back against them. I've talked before about One More Day, Peter Parker's deal with the devil, Tom Brevoort, and he said, when was this? Was it 2015? Someone asked him about why they won't, you know, get rid of One More Day, and he says, the medicine may not taste good, but if it makes you better, then you need to take it. Again, God complex, devil deals, that's your medicine. Take your medicine. The deal with the devil is good for you in Tom Brevoort's world. That's not me making up stuff. That's literally his words. And again, reading circles, just constantly telling each other that they are the greatest thing since sliced bread. So again, if you're wondering how we got to this point where, you know, Stan Lee has to step in, you know, and critique fans that are allegedly hostile and quote unquote harassing people. Diversity in Comics did a review on this where he said now criticism is now the equivalent of harassment in their minds. I think that was a really well said and an astute observation on his point. So again, if you're wondering how we got here, the autopsy will continue, but this is just one illustrative moment in time, no pun intended, with Amazing Spider-Man, where you can kind of see how we got to where we got. We need to get to a place where in Marvel's reading circles, they're telling the boss the truth. They're not telling him what he wants to hear and then pensively waiting for him to maybe come up with something that could be done better. And the same thing, you know, obviously we're not privy to the information that goes on in the retreats each year, but I suspect that what you saw in this Marvel reading circle for the Amazing Spider-Man number 620 is exactly what goes on at the retreats, just at a higher level with the writers, everybody telling each other that they're the most brilliant guy. Everyone's the most brilliant guy in the room, essentially. So anyway, that's my take for this week on Marvel Autopsy. I won't necessarily have one every single week. It'll just be as things come along to me from the past. But I think, again, this is something to consider and to come back to. So anyway, let me know what you think about this. I will link to the video, the Marvel video, in the description section below, as well as Tom Brevoort's comments on One More Day and the deal with the devil. And again, thanks to everybody for subscribing. Thanks to the Patreons. I've had a lot of new subscribers in the past couple days. I think this format is resonating with people. I'll continue to do it. I'll continue to do the normal reviews. People just said find a balance, and we'll go with it. And again, thanks for everything, and I will see you guys later. See ya.